Okay, good evening. Welcome to our Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, October 20th. I need to announce that we did have an executive session prior to this meeting which involved the following matters: personnel and collective bargaining under Section 708A1 and Section A2 and Section A5 of the Sunshine Act. And before we begin anything, I want to welcome Gary to our Borough Council. Thank you for volunteering, and we'll welcome you.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, great to have you. Okay.
Yes, definitely.
And we'll start with public comment. Any public comment? Do you want to announce public comment out there for anyone who may be online, please?
For anyone joining us online, you're now able to unmute yourself if you'd like to address the council.
I see none. Oh, are you public comment?
I am.
Okay.
Just real quickly, I am your Public Works Director. We do have two quick announcements that we'd like to share concerning the holidays here coming up. So for Trick or Treat on Tuesday the 26th, we want to remind residents to use caution when traveling the sidewalks and streets in the borough. There are several active construction zones and work sites that are currently taking place in the borough. We'd like to especially note that on Broadway, from Grant out through Eisenhower, there are temporary water lines along the sidewalks that we'd like residents to watch out for. We'd encourage residents to watch for the several railroad crossings that will be closed during this time, and to ask them to avoid those areas, and along with any construction equipment that they see placed alongside the streets and sidewalks. And just be mindful that there's plenty of metal plates out in the roads. Be careful where you cross. We just have to be very careful this year with all the activity we have in the borough.
Would be wise to take a flashlight.
Correct. That would certainly help. The other thing is the Halloween parade then is coming up then on Thursday the 28th. So we'd like to remind residents that chairs are not to be out until the day before, no earlier than 5 p.m. And finally, Santa is also affected by construction. He will unfortunately have to move across the quadrant, across Frederick Street, for a temporary placement this year over to the quadrant where Davino's and party people are, due to the construction on the buildings there in the M&T quadrant, the Lincoln Financial Building. That scaffolding will not be going. The cabin will move across there, and the Christmas tree will move across to the hotel quadrant. So the cabin will be close to the fountain. The tree will actually go catty corner from that now by the hotel. So I just wanted to put that out there. Yep, a little bit of changes this year with construction.
Where were the temporary water lines?
They are on Broadway,
On Broadway.
And they are from Grant, and they extend out through Eisenhower Drive.
Can we spray paint them silver glitter?
So
or
they
something?
do have markings around them.
Okay. For during dark, reflective. Okay.
So there are some cones around them. There's some walking pads to go over, but it will still be a bumpy area to traverse. This information will be available on our Facebook page, website, and there will be a press release.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any public comment from persons that are sitting here in our audience? Okay, then moving on to the consent agenda. I need a motion for the consent agenda, which would include minutes of the last meeting, September 15th, finance reports, and a capital project award the bid to J.M. Young and Sons for a grand total of $71,650 for the maintenance facility and roof replacement at the L.B. Shepherd.
What was that again, Barb? 71 what?
$71,650. Sure. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Second.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All in favor of the consent agenda indicate by saying aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next we have a presentation to meet the new Water Resource Director, Christopher, say that, Rolke? Is that correct? Rolke. Okay. All right. Good evening. Please join us. We're happy to have you with us.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we have some information about you, but would you share some information about you for the folks who are out there who might not be present?
Sure. So obviously my name's Chris Rolke. I'm the new Director of Water Resources. So kind of a little bit about me. I grew up in South Central Pennsylvania, graduated Carlisle High School a couple years ago, obviously. So kind of fell into wastewater treatment kind of early on in my career. It was one of my first jobs kind of right out of high school at an industrial facility. So I've done that kind of my whole career, water, wastewater. Luckily, I was afforded an opportunity later on in life to go back to college where I got my bachelor's in civil engineering with an environmental focus. So it's still water, wastewater related. Kind of did a little bit of consulting work and then started back in the industrial stuff in the wastewater field. So still working on my master's degree. I'm trying to get a master's in environmental engineering after this semester. I should be hopefully about halfway there, but I mean, I'm in no gigantic rush. I do have my engineering training license, working on my PE as well.
Great.
So I'm glad to be here. Look forward to working with everybody. I mean, it's been a fantastic first week. I mean, I'm truly impressed with everything I've seen so far, and everybody's been great to work with and extremely welcoming. So
I hope you continue to find that. Yeah. Any questions for him at this time by anybody? Okay. Good luck.
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, we have on our agenda presentation, review our classification and compensation study results by, I think it's Nancy Hess, right? Hello, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here with all of you this evening. And hello, Nan.
Hi, Nancy.
I'm just going to take a few minutes to give you some, general findings from this study. You all have been going through a lot of changes these last few months since we first began this project. So there are a few details that we will be wrapping up in the next month or so. You'll hear more from us. But my name is Nancy Hess, NJ Hess Associates. I've been in business for about over 30 years now, so I know, working with local governments, that is my niche. So this is the first I've had the opportunity to work with Hanover Borough. But I was contracted to conduct a wage and benefit survey to determine appropriate market ranges for job positions at the borough, and that would be the non-union positions, as well as a benefit comparisons, and also to prepare job descriptions. We conducted interviews with job incumbents, and we prepared job descriptions which represent the current actual job duties and responsibilities, which, again, some of those have been shifting a little bit in the last few months, and that just has a lot to do with the fact that you are taking a good look at your organization, which is great. I see a lot of really great things happening here. During the time of job interviews that we conducted and continuing through this year, a number of job transitions have occurred. So, yes, there are still a few revisions underway. The market study itself invited participation from primary sources, which included boroughs of similar structure and size, as well as some of your surrounding municipalities right here in the York region. It also included some secondary source data, which really is from surveys I have conducted over the last few years. So sometimes we didn't get exactly the data we were looking for from the primary survey source, so we went to some of the surveys that have been conducted in Pennsylvania in municipal governments over the last couple years, which I have conducted. So all in all, we had about 33 non-union positions included in this study. It represents closer to, I think it's 40-some employees, somewhere around there. So I also want to give you some specific or some highlights, which I know you are interested in hearing more about from this study. And I think that what I can say overall is that your employees are paid within the market range. We only found a few positions, and they are well below the market average. Those are primarily in the area of human resources and also at your library, and I think there's going to be some recommendations to address those deviations from the market. We also, in looking at the health benefit insurance, found that you have very robust health insurance. But I'd like to clarify this just a little further. What I found is that within the group of boroughs, which again are very similar in your structure and size, and by that I mean you have utility departments, you have about the same number of employees, I found a lot of similarity. But when I looked at the comparison of your benefits to, say, for instance, some of my township surveys that I conducted across Pennsylvania, I saw a much starker difference in terms of what employees were paying for their health insurance and the degree to which employees were also sharing in those costs. So it is a very benefit-rich employer when you compare to the overall municipal government, but with respect to your similar types of organizations, similar sized boroughs, there's not a lot of difference. I think those are some of the primary, the overall findings that I wanted to share with you from this survey. Our next steps really for this is to complete the structure, taking that market survey data and, working, I'll be working with Nan and with Amy to really provide more structure to the pay system. So once you've got the market data there, and that is in good order, you want to try to create some foundation, a system for moving forward. So we've done a lot of that work, but we do have some more work to do on that. And then I'll just be available as needed as you continue to evolve your positions and your organization. You're very capable to do that on your own here, but I would be available ongoing to help with that as needed. That is really the overarching findings of the survey. So I'm just appreciate the opportunity to meet with you about that.
Any questions for Nancy?
Will there be a final document?
Yes. We'll have some final document for you with some detail once we get some of the more recent changes included in that report.
And time frame for it?
We've been holed up as staff, actually, because of all the changes that have occurred. So
Is this this year yet, or is
yes,
okay.
yes,
Okay.
this year.
Yeah, it'll be. There's no substantive work to do. It's just making sure that the information is accurate. I think when we went over the survey, we realized, wow, we've had more changes maybe in the last few months than we realized. So.
And we just received this information tonight, so we took a brief look at it, but I'm sure we'll be studying a little bit more to make sure we're fair to everyone.
I'm very happy to take questions which you can channel through Nan. I can put them in writing, or if you would like to come back and have me talk with you, I'd be glad to do that too. So
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is very helpful. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it was a good study, I thought, and so, again, appreciate you being.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Moving on, the next thing we have is a discussion, I think Eric's going to talk to us a little bit about the rental properties and the status of rental property database, and our next steps to develop a rental property program, which he's been working diligently on.
I have. So here's where we are at with it. If you remember, this council had given me the task of looking into the rental program and looking at both options for it, look to see how it currently functions, how it could function better, and things like that. So one of the first things that I observed is that the way in which we sort of keep records for rentals needs to be modernized. It needs to be updated. We kind of have a steady stream of data that does come in as far as what our rentals are, where they're at, and the list of occupants and the people who are the quote renters in the borough. But that data kind of gets into what we call our KVS system, and it kind of goes nowhere. And so it's very hard to get to. It's very cumbersome. And so what we're actually doing, what we've already done, is we've ported those records out and we've actually are bringing them into the iWork platform because we already have it, and it actually gives us the opportunity in the future then to align whatever we might choose to do with rentals with our code enforcement program as well as our permitting program, which are both, they all sort of have intrinsically ties together with them. So with working with things that Sam had started with, and then Amy was actually able to help me finish up, we ported, I counted today, 3,237 records out of the KVS system, and they're now making their way into the iWork system where they're actually being attached to GIS parcels so that we can actually see where our rentals are at and geospatially see where they're at. The other thing that's nice about iWork is now I can automate all our processes. I can automate our process for reminding people about rentals, for taking rental registration forms in. We can have the application, the platform we use, the iWork platform, do all of that work for us. So it makes our job very, very easy, streamlines things, make the data very accessible, and it sets us up for a very solid platform then for the next discussions, which are where do you want to take your rental program as a council? And so my goal as I shift out of the data mode now is to start moving into giving you sorts of options. And so what I have been doing is I've been looking at what other communities do. I have been talking to other people who have rental programs, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what are your problems, what are your costs, those things. And so all that data is now starting to come in. And so what my next step now is to get that all together and get that back to you guys so that you can start to make some decisions, inform where your program goes and what you want to do with your rental program. But
when do you think you'll have that? No pressure or anything, Eric.
So the iWork effort will be wrapped up here probably in the next month. I think we're working with the iWork software developers to finish up that. So that data will be ready. Then we're going to start looking at the automated letters and things like that probably in December. But in the meantime, concurrently, I want to have discussions with you guys about what you want to do. So I think I would be prepared as early as next month to start coming in with some preliminary options for what you want to do and what other communities have done. I'm really trying to keep this as simplistic as possible for now, kind of give you that sort of menu, that a la carte menu of what you can do with the program, and then you can kind of give me some direction before I go diving down a rabbit hole and looking specifically at one or the other. And all of that, again, will be rooted at least on nice, firm data.
So where would that take place next month? Finance or
council
safety? Or?
Workshop.
The workshop.
I would bring it in.
Okay. This is public safety.
Unless this council would direct otherwise, but that was my vision.
I would prefer it from here. But.
Questions for Eric? Any questions? Sounds like you're doing a good job.
Trying.
All right.
Thank you
We'll
very
be
much.
anxious to hear next month. Thank you. Moving on to Finance, Personnel, Administration. Under the first one, I would appreciate a motion that someone might make for a $2,000 a month stipend for our interim treasurer, human resource manager, until we have an opportunity to study this entire classification, which we've just given tonight, which we will then be doing in November.
So moved.
Thank you. I hear a second to that motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor of that, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. I think the motion carries, though. Yeah. Okay. Next, we have on our agenda approving and replacing the following recently vacated positions: the patrolman in the police department with compensation set for collective bargaining agreement. And somebody's going to talk about that. Amy?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. So as the memo explained, we have 3 positions that are either currently vacant or will soon be vacant due to upcoming retirements that we're asking for you guys to approve filling. Those 3 positions are one of the police officers that left in mid-July, Julie Mao at the library, who's been there for over 40 years, and is really the support backbone of the library, is leaving. And so we'd like to obviously fill that position. And then Dennis Northcraft, who again has been a face here at the borough for the last 42 years, is retiring as well at the end of the year. So normally we wouldn't come this early to ask to fill these positions, but because the market is the way it is, we're asking to now start the process of advertising, recruiting, interviewing, and get, so we have the time to get somebody in there and replace these positions. As explained, these positions were kind of planned replacements, but it comes to you ultimately
Right.
for approval, so.
Any questions for Amy about those 3 positions? Do I hear a motion to approve those 3 positions to move this then
Second.
onto the council business agenda for next month?
Moved and seconded.
Oh, aye, first and second, thank you very much. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to say no,
Okay.
only because, are we taking this as a whole?
Yes.
Because I'm for some positions, but not all positions.
But we can take them individually if you would like.
If there's only
Would you
one
please?
vote, there's no point.
What? Motion's made
The
though for
motion's
3.
Motion was made as
All
a
right,
whole,
so
yes.
all in favor of 3. Let's hear that again. Those in favor of the motion for all 3, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, and then we'll be moving that on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Next, we're looking at the general fund budget for 2022, and I think Nan has a PowerPoint
PowerPoint.
presentation.
So we will wait till that comes up. Okay. All right, so tonight is the part of the budget process where, after hearing everything you've heard throughout the year about the 2022 budget, you make some key decisions about personnel and taxation. Next slide. So what have you done to date? This is a structured process, so beginning in March, you adopted a budget calendar. Excuse me. And then in April, you looked at the long-term results and projections from 2020, so that you knew where you were with regard to finances. In May, you adopted a budget message for the departments to prepare the 2022 budget. In August, you reviewed and agreed to the water and wastewater budgets. And in September, you received the very detailed general fund budget, because the general fund budget is the budget that relates to taxation and the capital budget. But throughout the year, this year, you reviewed the filling of vacant positions and capital expenditures before they were made. You also reviewed the progress toward department goals. So we've had a very structured plan to see if we could improve the finances of the borough. So tonight, rather than looking over large spreadsheets of numbers and expenses, we're going to present the big picture of general fund expenses and taxation decisions. So next slide. So the budget message that you prepared had 2 pieces. It had a mission statement, more or less, which said that our mission is to provide the residents and taxpayers of Hanover with necessary municipal services at a reasonable cost, that you desired to maintain a stable and planned rate of increase in real estate taxes. You wish to maximize efficiency in service delivery and customer service through the effective use of all personnel and the introduction of technology, and to reduce the net cost of service through fees where possible. And as you hear, it looks like we've done most of those things, and we've done all of those things this year. The second part is it's a little more specific, in that, as you know, we included no new positions defined as positions not included in the 2021 budget in the 2022 budget as a baseline. We maintain non-personnel costs at 2021 budgeted spending levels, which were actually the frozen 2019 actual expenditures. So that is like zero-based budgeting. We provided a separate capital budget, and it only included what we believed to be were essential needs. So we pulled back, we took a hard look, and this was essentially your mission statement. So why did Borough Council decide to get this involved and so tightly manage its expenses? So just to recap, the general fund which is where taxes are applied, is the funding for core municipal services such as police, fire, public works, library, planning, and codes enforcement. All other departments and administrative expenses are spread across all of the funds. So, for example, my salary, only a less than a majority comes out of taxation. But the core services, public safety services, library, planning codes, that's general fund expense. So beginning in 2021, the general, actually, more correctly, prior to this, we expected general fund expenses to exceed the revenues, which is called the structural deficit. And the budget that you adopted still had a $460,000 deficit in 2021, and that is unsustainable because by the time you get to 2025, your budget deficit is 1.874 million, and you have used millions of dollars just to balance your budget. So there's a couple of reasons why you need a fund balance. One is that excess money is one way to fund projects. Probably more important, however, is that because this municipality has a declining and low level of residential wealth, our residents are not rich people, our Moody's borrowing rate is highly dependent on our having some reserves. So it's very good that you have that, and we have a bond rating, I think it may have been in your packet, of AA3, which is the median bond rating for municipalities, and that's very good for a municipality that is not a wealthy place, so good job. So if we didn't tighten and watch what we were doing, the personnel costs, which increase exponentially, would overcome us, essentially. And there's no magic, really, to fixing a budget deficit. It's expenses and revenues. There's no magic. You can't get a manager to come in here and say, I can fix this. It's really simple math most of the time. And if you don't address your deficit, a community that has continual deficits ends up financially distressed, and the state has an enforced plan where it comes in and imposes taxes and negates collective bargaining agreements. So that's happened in Reading, Erie, and a couple other places. So what were the key 2021 decisions that changed the long-term outlook? Number one, Borough Council decided that it would not fill one vacant position in the police department, 2 vacant positions in the Department of Public Works, and also declined to fill a requested position in the Fire Commission. And still, even with that, our budget deficit was $461,000. However, what then is going to happen in 2021? What is our general fund performance? Next slide, please. Well, the general fund budget is expected to end 2021 in the black at $566,000, or $1 million beyond our expectations. And there's 2 reasons for that. The first reason is that there were some largely one-time sources of additional revenue. Because the real estate market was hot, we received the benefit of that, and real estate transfer taxes were up over $200,000 more than expected. We also received a larger than expected health insurance surplus and increased revenue from permit fees. So permit fees were raised. You decided to do that, and that was significant. Health insurance, everybody expected that there would be higher costs for health care because of COVID, and what really happened is people didn't go to the hospital and doctors much, and our health insurance costs went down. So we were the beneficiary of that. So next slide, please. Within the expense area, there was a $350,000. We were $350,000 to the good. That is a nominal kind of turn back at 2% of the $17 million budget, and it just represents the tight budgeting that you did. So that's a good thing. But it is also half of it. So it actually was really tight budgeting because half of it was a capital project that did not go forward. I'm not remembering which one specifically, but so that's very tight budgeting. On the expense side, it was tight. So what's next for the 2022 budget? First, we have some good news. The health insurance premium will be 4.4% more rather than the 8% we budgeted. This results in a $223,000 benefit across all funds, including $119,000 to the general fund, the fund to which taxes go. So we have a nearly balanced budget. It's you'll see that it is $87,000 in the hole and $17 million budget, and with $10 million in reserves, that is an achievement, and that achievement is because you cut back and you watched. So it's success in my opinion. So what's next for the 2022 budget? You need to make tonight, we would request personnel, expense, and taxation decisions. Police, Fire, and Public Works Department have presented requests to you, and those department heads are here to replace or add personnel, and there are negative effects that we felt from not having those personnel this year. And after you make these decisions, then next month we will present to you a final budget for advertisement and for public inspection. So the next slide are what are the key decisions. It's the slide that looks like this. Okay. And as you can see, if you did nothing beyond what you've looked at already, your deficit would now be $87,000, which is, in my opinion, not significant. If you never raise taxes in the next few years, which is doubtful, we can't go forever, it's been since 2014, you would use $3 million in reserves based on current assumptions, and you would have spent $3.1 million just to operate. If, however, you decide to put all these positions back in, you will be $375,000 in the hole this year. And you will use $4.6 million to balance your budget if you never raise taxes, and you will be down $4.6 million or have your reserves reduced from 10.3 to $5.6 million. So a big jump. However, if you vote all of those positions and you increase your taxes to support that, in other words, kind of living within your means, we want all these positions, therefore we're going to pay for them, you will be $124,000 to the good. You will use only $2.3 million in reserves over that period if you decide not to raise taxes, and you will be at $8.1 million in reserves, which is still very healthy. So let's turn now for the moment, and you can have other scenarios. We just gave you 3 to make it less complicated, but you could say, well, I want one police officer and one public works person, and you can make those, you can kind of mix and match as you think is best for the community. So the personnel requests. Public Works, they're down 2 positions. AJ's here for any questions, and the cost to fill one Public Works position is around $70,000. 2 is, of course, $140,000. That would be offset by some reduction in overtime. I think we've received more complaints on Public Works than in any other area. You'll probably hear some in leaf season. So that's just a decision about what level you want to fund, and you can certainly have that conversation tonight with AJ. The police chief is also here. And he is also down 3 sworn officers since 2017. Reinstating one position costs $90,000. And in the police department, they're unable to respond to complaints as fast. They can't provide targeted neighborhood services such as speed details or address as many quality of life issues. So they can do less. With regard to the Fire Commission, I think that it could be more effective with additional support staff. And as you know, the Fire Commission is still trying to figure out exactly what they need and want to support the Fire Commission. One thing that became, and as far as the library, I was not aware of this, but 1 full-time and 2 part-time staff were not included in the 2021 budget that I thought were included, and that reduced the library's personnel costs The library committee will recommend appropriate staffing for the library. Right now, the library director believes that she can manage the library without these additional personnel, and that over time, we can have more flexibility in scheduling by hiring part-time people to match the schedule of the library. In other words, it's good for now, but you can be expected that there will be proposals for increases, not maybe at the level of $80,000, but there will be requests for increases as we figure out what kind of staffing is appropriate for the library. So I would then I'll turn this over to you, really, and go to the next slide. And these are the numbers, and it's up to you to decide if you want to add personnel, how many, if you want to tax to support those personnel, or, whatever your choices might be. So it's turning it over to you as the elected officials.
Man, I have a
Thank you.
question.
Sure.
Is that okay? Sorry.
I just thank you. You've done a nice
Okay, sorry.
presentation for us to consider.
Can you remind us what a half mil tax increase looks like for the average Hanoverian who I think has a salary of, what is our median salary? It's like
54, 52.
54.
Okay, so what does that,
But it's on the house.
oh, these are the real estate.
Right.
I think a quarter was 36.
So can you give me an idea?
A
of
half
what-
mil is 76. Once you ask me, then I confuse the numbers, of course. But
I
half
confuse
mil
the
is
question.
$76.
So $76 a
A
year.
quarter of a mil is 38.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Man, I had a question on the real estate taxes. Does our plan or budget that we're looking at now essentially take into account the reduced tax assessment of the mall that just occurred?
I don't know. So I will find out.
How much was that?
A lot, and
Was a lot.
they're just driving it down. And the issue is, do we even have a chance to even fight back with the York County? It's like they make the decision and says, here, you get less money.
Well, as they do some other development to the mall, when we have a chance then to go back.
They don't want to. Eric can speak to that, but they're just driving the tax value down to the point that, it's having to be picked up elsewhere.
Well, it's also, the school district as well suffers. We all
Correct.
suffer. Yeah.
Correct, but that's my concern, is that they go and
Yeah.
they plead their case to York County, and York County makes a decision. Are we being represented at the time of those tax pushbacks?
Yes, we'll be represented, but I don't know if there was any reduction in tax revenue reflected in the plan. So I could find that out.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it just recently happened, if I remember seeing the document.
I don't have it.
I don't know if
But thank you for, bringing that up.
yeah, I mean, it's
Some
going to be
other
a
place on
continual
Palau
problem.
Street. What was the other place? I don't remember.
There was another one, yeah.
Another
they
one. That
pushed-
wasn't as much.
No.
No, that wasn't as much. The mall was more.
The mall is the
was
biggest
a lot.
contributor.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will look
So we
into
want
that
to
right
take
away.
those section by section. How do you want to do this? Want to do public works discussion and then move
Yeah.
to police?
So
Public Works.
tonight, we've been provided here salaries and where they are, and then here we're being provided salaries with benefits. So, it makes it hard to truly understand. I guess for Public Works, I have a question is, how much overtime are we actually paying?
I think I know the answer, but go ahead.
Right, so right now, it's projected at 80,000 for the year.
That's a lot.
And the manager Dunford mentioned leaf season.
Yeah, benefits.
We're still paving. We can't even begin leaf season until we're finished paving. It's the same equipment. And that is something that residents will not stand for. So that will require some overtime. It's not as forgiving as mowing the grass or some of the picking up trash. So that will expand along with as the weather continues to go bad. Another thing that I would like to remind you of is the projected $70,000 per employee in Public Works. That includes the benefits. That's if we're hiring someone who's married with a family. I will tell you 99.9% of the time when we hire entry-level trash, we're talking 19, 20-year-old kids. It's kind of neat to see the progression as they work through Public Works, and I see them kind of get married as they finish trash and that kind of thing. So you're talking more along the lines of 50,000 an employee at that rate. So I think that's one important thing to consider. And the fact that, these positions weren't eliminated based off a need, they were just eliminated based off of retirements. So that's where it's tough for us to continue our expanded functions that we really took on in the last 5 years, whereas I, noted last time we'd become more of a reactive department.
So that does bring up another question is, are we taking on responsibilities that we should not be doing and maybe looking to outsource or contract out?
So like some of the things I'm talking about are a lot of the Kinsley paving operations through Columbia Gas. So that's actually bringing revenue in.
Save us money.
When I don't have those guys, it lessens my ability to be flexible and make those kind of trade-offs where we do $120,000 of paving and they do $2 million. Those kind of things start to go, we're in a tough spot this year. I'm trying to finish out all of our commitments for this year to work those deals. But we've been very fortunate to keep those going. But those are the things I'm talking about. I don't think we're looking at any kind of like extravagant services that we're offering that are out of line with what we should be doing.
But still, the idea of, mowing parks, picking up trash, doing leaves, those are things that could be contracted out to a landscape company or something.
Still costs you money.
It does, but you also control, it's on a bid basis.
Which is great the first time. And then you get rid of all
You
your
still can
employees and all your
negotiate, no, I'm not
equipment,
saying you
and
get
now
rid
you're
of,
a
nobody's saying about
customer.
getting rid of employees.
Well, I'll just give you
Well,
an
if we
idea,
stopped doing
Chuck,
all
when
these
we,
things, why would we keep the
That's not what I'm
employees?
saying, it's just
when I first
additional
came
more.
in, we contracted out mowing for the medians on Eisenhower at $13,000 a year. So we can do that a heck of a lot less than what was contracted out. Nothing that we're doing is out of the realm of what a typical public works department would do and what I think we should offer, and actually more, I think, of what we should offer. More regular patrolling of downtown for trash and litter, those kind of things, where we're basically set up to have a department that maintains. When council asks for special projects or we have groups come in, just like the pavilion that we just did with Kiwanis, where Borough Services help stretch those donation dollars and grant dollars sometimes twice as far. Having that staff is what allows us to do that.
As a borough resident, I would prefer more leaf collection, but, a lot of people would, but I know you only have so many.
So that's one thing, I'll just give you an example. So just by identifying efficiencies that we had in the department, when I first came, we would have one leaf truck out during leaf season, sometimes two. I came in, we found a way, we got free equipment, we turned that into 3 leaf trucks. We're getting another leaf truck paid 90%. Through a grant that we've acquired. I think there's a lot of bigger and better things ahead for us. But yeah, it'll be tough with cutting staff.
I think there is a certain expectation that citizens do have for quality of services from the borough because they pay taxes.
And that expectation has risen. As we continue to kind of take care of what we have, I think that expectation has gone out into the community. Especially with the parks and those kind of things, people are not just kind of, that's just the way it is and that's the way it's always been here. It's really started to change, and I think our guys have kind of taken that on too with their attitude and what they've done, just kind of cultural wise, to kind of take more care of the neighborhood and continue those programs.
Chuck, you had a question. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, just something I've noticed over the years is that the time of leaf pickup should shift. Because the leaves are dropping later, how does that change the operations of people?
So it
Because it's like mine are just coming off where actually the borough trees are just coming off.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, they're not picking up leaves anymore because the leaves dropped.
Well, that hasn't stopped here. So over the
November.
last several years, and I think we've talked about that here at council, we actually collect leaves until it snows. Until we can't. And then oftentimes if we have a small snow, then we go right back at it again. It's just the ability to throw people on that job. So like we're paving this week. There's nothing else we can do. We're paving, collecting trash. That's what we can do this week.
We do rake the leaves of the trees that are owned by the borough.
So with 2 guys, you have them tomorrow, what are you doing with them? If all you're doing right now is paving and collecting trash, what are
Right.
the two guys doing?
Right.
I mean, I
So-
get the big picture, but
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
maybe the small picture. is the
Just to
one
give you an idea, so we have 3 grant projects that are on hold that if we do not get done by this year, we're giving some money back. That looks like a real possibility. The crosswalks aren't painted. A lot of the pavement markings aren't out there, and then just the mowing. So the mowing is going to look bad this week in the borough because I could only dedicate a day and a half to it. There's no one at the recycle yard most days for assisting with unloading recyclables. Just those kind of things.
Well, if you would get one, that would really, that would dissipate some of your overtime costs. Would that be correct?
It wouldn't help so much with the overtime because I have to have that flexibility of what we had done with guys with overtime before was allowed them to be off a day during the week, and then they would work a Saturday or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't help so much because it wouldn't be enough to eliminate someone off of a crew to still be able to have a functioning crew. It wouldn't help so much with overtime somewhat, but it would more help with just the ability to kind of complete some of the tasks.
And you said how much overtime was?
So we're projected around 80 right now.
But probably more.
80,000. Yeah, so
Yeah.
typically Public Works runs at 2%, 2.5%
Oh.
overtime for labor. I think that one was at 5.5 or 8, somewhere like that. Yeah.
So when you were fully staffed, 2% was the norm, and now that you are down 2 employees, which I want to remind everyone, we're not asking for new hires, we're actually down 2 employees from being fully staffed. You're running at like 5% overtime.
Correct.
I could support 1. I'll throw that out there and just see what everybody else thinks.
One note,
What?
one note real quick is that there will be no school tax increase to the borough residents this year for 2022.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank John for that. And the
Just a
board.
heads up.
Thank you.
I'm in support of a fully operated, fully staffed operation. So that would be 2 positions for public director, for public works.
So the overtime comes from Saturday work?
Right now, the majority of the overtime comes from Saturday work. So as we get into the winter weather, that takes a big bite out of it. But we're getting to the point now where we're going to have to start assigning overtime to complete regular tasks. So we're past the point of the year where we can do pavement markings and crosswalks and all those kind of things. That's just going, unfortunately. It'd take too long to dry and that kind of thing. Yeah. But just your standard things, like mowing, some of this paving, leaf collection, that type of work. So if you look out here, we have. I hate to I hate to point it out. We have a traffic light, an overhead street light out in the square. There's a light out over the library. There's a light out on Eisenhower. Those kind of things. As we pull staff to do the other things, those are the things that slip until they absolutely positively have to be done.
And these really become quality of life issues in a community. It's
Correct.
what kind of town you live in.
Correct.
Do you live in the kind of town that changes its light bulbs when they go out?
So like some of the other things we've taken on is with the codes department. When the codes department identifies a vacant property, that used to just sit there and just annoy the heck out of the community and the neighbors. Public Works now goes in and we mow those properties. We collect the trash off of those properties. And then we bill and lien the property to try and hopefully recoup some of that money in the future. But that's one of the things we hadn't done in the past either. And that's one of the things that's kind of going by the wayside now because I can't keep up with our regular.
Right.
Which of course impacts investment in the community when you have these properties that look like they're.
Sure. Comments from anybody?
No, none.
Comments, questions? Anybody have a motion?
Before we make the motion,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think,
In separate
Please.
motions for every department, or?
I think we'll do one at a time.
I'm curious what we're trying to do. Are we trying to break this apart and then get to the end of it and say, oh, we need a tax increase? Because that sort of, if we decide to take all of these on, as per the manager's presentation, it's creating a budget picture that shows the deficit or the reduction, and the reduction of the reserves. So,
But I'm not,
I mean, I've only spoken to
some
half
point in
of
time,
the
that's the
requests,
big
so I don't
elephant in
know.
the room. That's the big elephant in the room that, I mean,
obviously do them all, there's probably going to have to be some sort of a tax increase, but I'm not anticipating we would do all those requests. I don't know what else is. I'm not anticipating we would fulfill all those requests.
If something else gets cut somewhere.
well, yeah,
You
and we,
trim
I mean,
elsewhere.
I think we have your question was very large earlier, as far as the
See that
impact
impact.
of the magnitude of what that's going to be, just as far as how large, and it might be a moot point. I mean, we might be having a discussion about replacing personnel that we can't afford to unless we do a tax increase. So this is, I don't want to get to the end of this and say,
No.
oh.
Because real estate
no.
tax reduction,
Right,
for one.
right. I wish we had that number now.
Well, what
I'm not
if-
faulting you, I'm just, it's like, oh, yeah,
It's big.
yeah, I know it's big.
I remember it big. That's why when I read it, I got
That's why-
peeved about it, because I'm like, did anybody even know this was happening?
That looks after the school zone.
That's my point, that it's big and that it directly impacts, because all of this discussion
It
is
is.
related in and of
I
itself.
forget what report it was in that I saw it.
No, Amy's going to call Sam. He
I did see that. I think
probably
it was
is
in
on
the
top of
packet
that.
we got.
I can't remember where I read it. I was just like, whoa, where'd that come from? It was like two
Here it is.
properties.
Here it is.
Oh, you have it.
Here it is. The Eisenhower Drive, the old assessment was 4 million, the new assessment was 3 million.
Oh, well,
That's the assessment. Of
That's the
it.
assessment, I don't know what
What's the
I don't
tax
know.
implications, the
I don't know
question
what the
mark?
difference is, and I don't know what the difference is and what they're going to pay.
Yeah, that's,
face of it doesn't sound
we need that
bad.
number.
I don't
We'll
even
get
know.
you a number if we can, but if that is the, is that the assessed, that can't be the assessed valuation.
They're
No,
three
the old
quarters of what they
assessment,
were.
yeah.
What's
That's
the
their
assessed
valuation.
valuation?
I'm sorry, the new assessment?
Yeah.
Okay, that's $3,775,000. That doesn't seem like much.
That doesn't sound right.
For the
What's the
mall?
old one?
Yeah, I thought it used to be like
That's the old one. That's gotta be
17.
old.
It says Eisenhower Drive, is that the mall? Do you think it's the mall?
No, that's not the mall.
It's not the mall.
360 Eisenhower.
What is that? Oh, it says Kohl's. I'm sorry, it's Kohl's. It's
Oh,
not, it's Kohl's. It's not
Kohl's.
the mall. It's Kohl's. It's Kohl's. Because it's only a store. It can't be the whole mall. Yeah, it's just
So
a
they're
store.
reducing the value of it just because it's sitting empty.
No, it's not empty.
Kohl's is
Kohl's
occupied.
is
Oh, Kohl's.
thriving.
Why would they reduce Kohl's?
I don't know. Kohl's is thriving.
I was
I don't-
thinking.
I don't know what this thing is. I don't know
So
that.
that's another,
Right.
that's a
Well, let's,
$1 million
I don't know that place.
tax basis impact.
They're going online. They're making their money online, just like Sears.
And 200 Carlisle Street's 117,000, looks like, ish.
That can't be that much.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry,
broke.
no, it's
Where's
60,
that place?
338 and 261, 39,
It was effective January.
75,000.
I thought the mall was in there too. Wasn't the mall in there?
The mall's not in there. That's the only two I saw.
These,
While we're waiting, why don't
Huh?
we discuss the fire
They were in our
commission and
packet.
police officer requests?
I don't know.
And I don't even know where that place is. What is that? Rogue Street?
I never heard of it.
Well, I mean, it makes a difference to what this number is if we fill some and not all, or.
I agree.
So, Jim, were you thinking the mall when you saw the one, you thought it was the mall?
I might have. I thought I saw the mall reduction. Wanted some.
Do you know anything about the mall, Tim?
Yeah, I saw it in one of the programs for the school.
Oh,
So I thought I.
It
I didn't
was
see
a
that
lot,
in-
it was a pretty good hit to the school
it would be.
and what month did that come out? That
I didn't see
information?
that.
last month.
Last month, so I'm thinking this is programmed in, but we'll know soon. Because Amy is going to call Sam, because he said he'd watch tonight.
Yeah, because these two were, what does it say the date, when did they approve
One's
them?
October 12th.
Yeah, October 12, October 12,
Yeah, both of them.
yeah. I don't know what impact that would have.
Whatever. I don't.
Yeah, well, there's always variations, but
Yeah. Do we
It
need
seems
to
like
know,
a
do we need to
trend.
know that answer before we do anything? I mean, we're getting down to the,
I don't.
I think we
Maybe
should
here.
continue to discuss the
Yeah, I don't know if
positions.
we should
I
do
think
it.
so too. I'm good with that. Any other questions for AJ? And he's asking for two. All right,
Thank you, AJ.
thanks. Okay, next, Hey, Chief, hello.
How you doing?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Chief.
Hello.
I hate when people have to grovel for positions. I mean, that's sort of, I hate that, but I mean,
Nature of the beast.
you have to do it. It's money and it's important discussion. So you're asking for two?
Yes, it was be one in addition to the approval tonight. So again,
Okay.
as I said before, it's not so much again with the police department overtime issue at this point. I think overtime and then comp time annually, it's probably about 30,000. That is the police department budget. More for the police department, it's about remaining proactive and being able to continue providing the citizen services they've come to expect. Again, since we talked in August, I've moved another officer off the street to start shadowing John Roser, who's the evidence tech who, like I said, turned 70. So that leaves, 2 squads, patrol squads down, an officer. Another officer can retire at the end of this month. So it really becomes, we get down to, 4 officers per squad, then you have to account for vacation time. We get speed complaints that, unfortunately, the state of Pennsylvania is behind the nation. We don't have radar. We need 2 officers to run the speed unit we have. So if you're starting off a shift with 3 officers working the street and you have speed complaints and, that shift, it's the summer months, pretty much the whole summer is going to be 3 officers per shift working because of vacations. You're essentially not going to be able to run any speed. I foresee, other details we do for the community, like, our community policing areas program where the officers are assigned to walk in the neighborhoods, going to the wayside, so to speak, because the officers will be busy answering calls, writing reports, etc. Now, that might not seem significant, but I believe it is significant in that the community gets to know our officers when they're out there, gets to know us as people. I think it's, puts some coinage in the legitimacy bank with our citizens should something major happen, such as a shooting. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of those things where nobody likes to talk about it, but unfortunately it's a matter, I believe, of when, not if. And you sort of have to prepare for that. So again, I think it's a difficult decision I understand council has to make. And it really does fall down to what does council want for its citizens of the police department. Mm-hmm. So the less personnel we have, we'll get the job done with, emergencies and, we're always going to, you call 911, we'll be there. It's just the extras, the community service agencies and Boy Scout troops that want talks. And, this Sunday we're out at Rural King for their trunk or treat with an officer. Those type of little community policing engagements, will be harder to be able to fit into the schedule without overtime. At this point, we are able to do these things without paying overtime. It'll be harder to try to, when we had to reduce one detective out of the office here 2 or 3 years ago, which was essentially the drug detective. This year we took a proactive stance in trying to work with the county drug task force. And because of the shifts having 4 and 5 officers, we were able to shift officers and ask them to switch their shifts, and we can create details. As a matter of fact, we have a detail tonight going with the task force. That's going to be harder to do when you have, minimum staffing all the time. We did a detail last month. We got 3 drug arrests and took a gun off the street. So the stuff is out there in Hanover. We're fortunate that, in Lake 20 miles to, our north here with York. In the news, you see every week a shooting, a homicide. We see those characters in the Hanover area. Our officers deal with those same people. The guns are here, the drugs are here. We're very fortunate that the other stuff isn't yet. I do believe that some of that is with the number of officers and the proactivity we have been fortunate over the last 10 years with the vision of council to keep our numbers where they're at. My concern is where does it go if we continue to dwindle?
Question for the chief.
Yes, Chief, how many speeding tickets did we actually hand out last year?
I don't think it had a number for you. I think we wrote altogether 2,000 plus traffic citations.
I didn't say, I meant speeding tickets that require 3 officers.
I don't have that number for you, sir.
Okay.
I can get that for you.
Did you change to that change? Did you move to that new shift thing that was approved?
The 12-hour shifts, that'll take December 25th. Is actually,
How does that happen?
December 25th is actually the
Okay.
first day of the 2022 schedule.
Is there any possibility, I'm just asking, is there any possibility that you go to that shift change and then you see what it is and come back and say, I still need somebody? I mean, do you think there's any possibility with the shift change that would help? I don't know.
Well, we're still running 4 squads right now, so the numbering of the squads doesn't change. So, we're still going to be down going into 2022. 2 squads will be down an officer as it is right now.
So how many squads will be running with the change in the shift?
It'll still be 4.
Still be 4?
4 patrol squads,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you get 12 hours each one day, 12 hours the next day. It's 4.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
2 squads being down an officer, 1 is approved already, like of those 2.
You approved it tonight, so then actually, once we get the hire, it'll be, only
know,
1.
thanks.
However, we're at a point now that testing is in January again. Where we were at, we're not going to be hiring off of what we had worked on, unfortunately. So we could be talking till September, depending on where it falls of next year,
You get
if they
somebody.
need to go to the academy. Yeah, so we may be even talking to early 2023 till somebody's ready for the street at this point.
When
And then
we do our budget, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
When we do our budgeting, do we account for that? So like if we say, okay, $90,000 for an officer with benefits in 2022, but we can't hire an officer who's ready and is on the street until December of 2022, what has happened to that $90,000? Like,
That's a good question.
I'm saying like
I see
the
what you're saying.
budgeting is for the position for a whole year, but if the hiring process is 9 months,
Yeah.
that kind of changes how it impacts the budget that year. Now, I know we don't know. We could get lucky, right? And get like the
Right.
best
So COVID is
officer walking right in.
Yeah, so COVID has sort of skewed things with the academy. Right now, it's running March to September. Before it was January, July. So we sort of had a process where we figured council may or may not do that. If we figured that we could get an officer hired for July, we would schedule or try to budget a half-year salary for a probationary officer.
It's kind of hard to know. And I understand that you don't know. You don't know who you'll end up hiring. Will they need to
Right.
go to the academy? Will they already be a
Right.
graduate?
So essentially, if we would budget, for 2 officers, January 2022, that's highly unlikely, but it is unlikely at this point. Probably the soonest we could hire an officer at this point is probably the end of February, March. So that's probably the time frame. If we miss the March academy deadline, then we'd be looking at September. So
Are we paying them a salary while they're in the academy?
yes, we do.
Okay. Never mind. Then my question's irrelevant. Sorry.
No.
I'm accustomed to
It's a good thought.
On the officer you pulled off the street to go to evidence, are they doing evidence full-time?
They are also doing detective investigation, yeah. At this point, he's primarily shadowing the evidence tech when the evidence tech is working.
Guy now is half-time, isn't he? The evidence guy.
That's
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
how
Monday
it's
through
working.
Thursday,
Yeah,
yes. There's also
cost differential between the officer and the evidence guy.
Yeah.
There's also laps in the schedules where he's still filling the street, and when he's not, he'll be picking up the investigations with,
So he'll sort of be doing 2 things.
yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like he's doing 3. The street,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
evidence
Yeah.
training,
Yes.
shadowing,
Right.
detective.
Any other questions for Chief? No. Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
explanation.
So we do have some more information if you're ready for it.
Sure.
Please.
Amy, would you like to, we'll do this together.
Sure.
You start.
As of the information that's on the county site, this is still an open and active case. The last court docket was from April the 7th. However, they are, I guess, in settlement negotiations. We don't have those numbers. The existing assessment is $14.7 million, roughly. Even if they would divide that in half at our current rate, it would be about $40,000 impact.
So not as scary.
No, it's not scary.
Sounds.
And we exceeded real estate revenues themselves by $45,000 last year.
And it's six figures this year, or more. That's what you had in your slide. real
The
estate.
slide was relative to transfer taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of moving
Yeah,
parts.
yeah.
Yeah.
Reassessments and assessments are one of them. I'm glad the question was asked, but it
That's a good
looks like
question.
it's part of the moving parts. It's not something that's going to have a dramatic effect. It's going to have an effect, but not a dramatic effect.
Thank you for that quick detective.
Thanks for the
Yeah,
transfer
good
taxes.
work.
That's good. All right. Okay, and the last one, discussion would be the fire commission. Who is here?
I can speak to that.
Okay, that'd be great.
I can say that the Fire Commission does need some additional support staff administratively, but the Fire Commission currently is a work in progress. And I would say that within 6 months, we should know what the Fire Commission needs. So that it's something council, if you choose, could revisit sometime early in 2022. But in my opinion, yes, the Fire Commission does need some additional administrative support. We don't have job descriptions or positions costed out or know how that works. So.
Anything you want to add, Bill?
Well, no, and if we added that, that would be, those of you who recall what that number was, and I forget what you had, nearly 90,000
So 45.
Yeah,
for us.
our portion of that, because we split with
Yeah,
Penny,
yeah.
so impact us is approximately $45,000 if we decide to do that one, would be the only comment.
But we're going to wait till some other things settle.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on.
Does that seem
Yeah,
fair?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that sounds fair.
I'm
Okay.
perfectly happy to revisit that one.
Okay. All right. All right. And I think we're good on library, right? We're good on library. We're okay right now?
Right now.
Okay.
So we will regroup on the library, find out what additional personnel beyond what we have we need for programs and more hours, and come back to council. However, will probably not be the same kind of staffing plan as we've had in the past with full-time and permanent part-time staff. It'll be more hourly, part-time to fill in the gaps. So we're hoping to save, they've already significantly impacted our bottom line by not coming to council to replace the personnel that have left. But it's similar to the Fire Commission in that we need a better plan, and a better plan will be coming our way within a few months.
I appreciate looking at half-time as opposed to full-time. That's a good thing. Thanks. So I guess we don't have to do anything with the Fire Commission, but we have to go back to Public Works and Police. Do we want to come up with a recommendation, and Nan can fill us in later what that's going to cost us, and give us some options for if we would need a tax increase? I don't think any of us want a tax increase, so that's, but, something I guess we have to take a look at.
I mean,
What do you think?
staff were cut somewhere else. I mean, try to minimize the impact.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, again, as was defined,
I would say what is a very late date in the budget process in October, that anybody who wants to suggest additional cuts has had plenty of opportunity to review the budget and let us know what those cuts are. And that this conversation is going to be just as hard next month as it is this month. And it's going to be just as hard in December as it was in November. Like,
it's made the decision easy.
it isn't, but it's not going to be any easier a month from now.
We don't really have the exact figures for this year anyways. It may have been more of a savings. You never know. I mean, with the more transfer taxes, that kind of stuff, we might get more money. I don't know.
That will fall to the bottom line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The reserves.
All right.
But you are essentially balanced without adding additional staff. Adding one additional person is not going to throw that off very much.
I don't think either.
But you can see what happens if you throw them all in the pot over time. That's not sustainable.
Right.
So it's just council's job to balance tax increases with added costs, and at what level you don't need to do that. In my opinion, if I were an elected official and we weren't going to add any staff, I don't have a problem with an $87,000 projected deficit. To me, that's essentially balanced. If
Yeah.
you want to add some additional staff, then it's a balancing act for council to decide, do you want to pay more or not? And because at some point, we haven't raised taxes since 2014. At some point,
Yeah.
it can't go on forever.
So a quarter of a mil
Expenses will
increase
continue
gives you
to
250,000, am I correct?
Pardon me?
A quarter of a mil increase gives you 250,000.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. I think everyone would certainly say that we'd like to make everybody happy, but our job isn't always to make people happy. We have to be considerate of the people who pay the bill, and that's taxpayers, and we're all one of them.
Let's do this.
Do we want to make some sort of recommendation, and then Dan tells us what impact that has at our next meeting?
Or in between, I can tell you, we can almost estimate what it is, because we know what one position costs. We can add it to the baseline deficit, and you'll know what deficit you have. And you'll know what the long-term effect is, because it'll be between the different lines. So you can pretty well get there tonight if you're willing to take estimates.
Does anybody want to make a motion regarding Public Works? Let's just start there.
I move that we add or replace one of the missing Public Works positions and offset it with a quarter mil tax increase.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I move that we hire
One.
one for Public Works
Okay.
and offset it
Is
with
there
a
a second
quarter
to that
mil tax
motion?
increase.
Second the motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. So, basically, we're saying all in who, I think we're going to have a roll call vote here to see who's in favor of one, and then see what impact that has on the budget.
Can you clarify if, so my motion was to offset it with a quarter mil tax increase? I'm just not.
Oh, you said a
sure.
quarter mil.
Quarter, not a half, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, I didn't know if you knew that I was.
No, I didn't hear
including
that.
in
I
my
thought you only
motion,
heard
and I
one
wanted
person.
to make sure you knew what you were
no,
voting
okay, the
for.
motion is one Public Works person and increase the taxes
With
by.
an offset of a quarter mil.
All right. Okay, that motion is on the table. All right. So you know what the motion is. One Public Works employee and a tax increase by a quarter of a mil, which is $250,000. And $36 for the homeowner per year.
$30 to a homeowner.
38,
Yeah.
36.
You will be slightly in the black.
Right. All right, so we have a roll call vote on that since it's money? Let's give us a roll call vote. Everybody knows what we're
Why
voting on.
not? It's
Okay,
fun.
let's go.
Mrs. Funk? For the quarter mil tax, no.
It's Public Works and
And
quarter mil.
Public Works for
motions
just
for
one
both.
instead of the two?
Both,
The
right?
motion's for both. You can't
Motion's for both.
separate it.
to get another motion.
Motion's for both. We need another motion.
The motion is for one employee for public directors,
And a tax
offset
increase.
by a quarter mil tax increase.
Yeah. You
Those
can't.
things
okay.
are all in that motion.
Okay, so the tax increase is on the table.
Yes, I know
Okay,
this.
so that's a no. Okay, next.
Mr. Greenhold?
No.
Mr. Hagberg?
No.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Lockard?
No.
Ms. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Ricart?
No.
Dr. Rupp?
No.
Okay, so we have 6 voting no and 2 voting yes.
Motion is defeated. All right, so do we need another motion regarding Public Works? Anybody want to make another motion? Can I make a motion? Can I make a motion?
Of course you can.
I can make a motion, can I?
Sure.
Okay.
You're in charge.
Okay, I didn't know if I was allowed to make a motion. I would support, I'm making a motion to hire one additional Public Works person.
Second.
Thank you.
And just not pay for it.
I'm sorry?
And then just have the deficit?
I'm just making that
Okay.
motion to table to find out what that deficit is. We already pay $80,000 out in overtime, and he's looking, we're like $69,000. All right, okay. Let's hear, that's how a roll call vote on that.
Mrs. Funk?
I'm going to say no to one, okay?
Mr. Greenholm?
I'm going to say no to that.
Yes.
Mr. Hagberg?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Lockard?
Yes.
Ms. Francis?
No.
Mr. Ricart?
Yes.
Dr. Rupp?
Yes.
We have 6 voting in favor of, 1 Public Works employee, and 2 voting against, so the motion passes.
The motion carries. All right.
I'd like to make the motion
Please.
to fill the other officer vacancy.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. The motion on the table to fill the officer slot and to, period, just that, just hire 1 additional officer. Can we have a roll call vote on that?
Yes. Mrs. Funk?
Yes.
Mr. Greenholdt?
Yes.
Mr. Hagberg?
No.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Lockard?
Yes.
Ms. Francis?
No.
Mr. Ricart?
Yes.
Dr. Rupp?
Yes.
We have 6 voting in favor of hiring 1 more police officer and 2 in opposition, so the motion passes.
I mean, you don't have to do anything with the fire commission, so.
No.
All right. Do you want to give us the bad news next week? Wait, I don't want the bad news right now. We can do the bad news right now.
Well, the only thing I can say is you'll have less of I believe you'll have less of a deficit than you did going into '21.
Great.
So there's some good news.
Okay, that's good. Thank you all for there's some tough decisions to make.
Yeah, it was pretty
But on the fiscal reserve.
Thank you. All right.
That's awesome.
And then the next one is a tax rate decision. We don't need to do that.
Unless you,
No,
somebody
I
wants to
think
make
that
a
was sort of
motion to
defeated.
increase
Yeah,
taxes.
okay, good. All right, next one we have on the borough goals for the third quarter report, which were in your packet. Any comments you'd like to make about that?
Just that you have a third quarter report, and from the staff, you have
Yes.
some suggested goals. So it would be great if you have any ideas of things you would like to accomplish in 2022 that could be added to this, and then they can be put forward for adoption in November.
Should we give some thought to that?
Yeah, give
Okay,
some thought to it.
thought to that, all right?
I think Mr. Kress had an idea, and Mr. Hegberg had an idea, as far as I know, so.
Do you want to?
I don't remember that idea, but that's
All right, tell us what ideas
Yeah, I
now.
remember what you said. You said maybe we need a HARB, a Historic Review Board, and Mr. Kress discussed with me the possibility of a facilities.
Some kind of facilities person, because my concern was at the library meeting that we're going to put money into the library, but we don't have staff to take care of it.
Right.
So maybe we come up with a contingency plan to outsource that, or,
Yeah. I think that was the problem with the first time.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's the position we have here as borough electrician / facility maintenance supervisor?
Is that Gilbert?
It's Gilbert.
He's not a supervisor.
Well, I'm just saying what it says here.
Yeah, but,
Yeah, in the current budget.
This would be more of a higher, this would be a higher level position.
yeah, right.
So he's not a maintenance person.
By default.
Because there isn't anybody else. All right, so we'll discuss that, we can discuss that in November. I think that's a good suggestion, after we look into this next project, have somebody supervising it to save us money and make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing when we do it. All right? Next one, appointments to the HEDC and boards that can provide direction on whether to advertise. Anybody have any disagreements with advertising for candidates to fill those positions?
No, I think we should.
I think we should advertise, be more
We need to
transparent.
broaden it out.
Because we're trying to be more transparent.
Get more people involved.
Yeah, I think just as a reminder, this body has made the decision to pretty much advertise everything, so I don't know if you have to keep asking for approval, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I won't. You
Okay.
asked that I put this on the agenda.
Okay.
And you might not have recalled that, but that's
Oh.
why it's on. We talked, and I said, what shall we do about this? Do you want, because,
I thought I said just advertise, sorry. Yeah,
oh,
we
so
were
these
communicating.
positions are Maybe there's a disconnect here.
Yeah.
We have positions that have individuals in them, they're incumbents, their terms are expiring.
Right.
So the decision is whether to advertise those positions
Yes.
or, okay,
Yes.
got
I
it.
think we
Yes.
should. And where do we
Does any-
advertise?
Website?
Website, Facebook, newspaper, wherever we can.
Do we put anything in, like, people do get that free merchandise. A couple people said to me, I never knew there were positions open.
We'll do it in the merchandise.
And I think people don't go looking, unless it's in front of your face. I don't get the merchandiser, but some people
If you
do.
do get it, you probably can
You
throw it
get
away.
You know, I mean,
Everyone gets it.
It's free, I think. I don't know if it's free to advertise. Is it?
No, it's not free.
It's not free?
No.
But that's at least a newspaper.
We'll add the merchandiser. if you
Yeah,
want.
try it, to see if we get any more. I don't know.
Just specify within the borough, please.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, right.
I
You can
know,
do
but
that.
too many people have the assumption that 17331 is a borough resident.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
That's the disconnect. But
Thank you. And any other questions about that? You okay with that?
I'm good with
Okay,
that.
good.
That's great.
The next thing on our list was committees of council approve the operating procedures under the borough ordinances. Bill, do you make any comments about that? Because we decided early on about the committees, and I think the committees have been doing a good job focusing on goals.
Yeah,
Any
it's
comments
the-
you'd like to make?
it's that time of year again to start looking at next year. And of course, we have an election to go through here in a month, and there'll be new people here. But we can still, the process of governance continues no matter who's here. So in an effort to set that in motion, I think right now we'll leave it as committee chairs and current committee members, and certainly council at large, look at the overall issue of, do you think committees are meeting enough, too much? Comments are certainly appreciated. And we've the last time we revisited this, staff and leadership of council took a fair amount of time to try to coordinate these things so that not everyone was here, 4 weeks
Every
a
night.
month for 2 nights a week, that kind of thing. So I guess maybe where the direct issue might be between, do we need to actually meet once per month or once per quarter or every other month?
Right now, it's bi-monthly,
Yes.
Yeah.
and I think Mrs.
think-
Funk has an opinion about some committees
Right.
that should meet more often.
Right,
That's the-
governance, because we constantly have things before us.
Well, anybody who has a committee meeting and then says we need to discuss it next month has the option of coming up with a committee.
chair.
The next immediate month, if need be, so.
Yeah,
the
with
governance
us,
committee
it
could
would
do
it
that
would
if they have
really
to.
be best for us to have it monthly. I mean, Chris, you have to express yourself. And see, once we have it monthly, if we don't have
Well, if
business,
there's
we
nothing
can
to do,
cancel.
we don't have to
It's
have
so
it just
easy.
for the sake of having it, but yeah.
Right, it's so much easier to
The
cancel.
one that I kind of thought of even more so than that would maybe public safety, because a lot of times, if a resident has a concern and they've just missed the public safety meeting, they've got to wait essentially 2 months to come to the next safety committee meeting. Or, I mean, if they don't take the other actions.
I agree that if we are going to
That'd be
continue
more
to
important, I
tell
think.
the residents that the Public Safety Committee is a place that they can come with their public comments about public safety, I agree that should be monthly. People just get more ticked off waiting 2 months for that meeting. It doesn't do anybody any
And
good.
again, the two alternatives are to schedule regularly, which we have to do. We have to advertise
Have
and
to advertise.
communicate. We can always then cancel
special meeting.
as per the business assigned, either materializes or not.
Right, it's more
So-
difficult
So
to
those,
set these up, in a month, if we change. So if we do it monthly and then we find, just like Public Works or whatever, we don't have any business, we can cancel.
governance and safety I've heard vocalized that would like to be monthly. Any other committees? Anyone
Will that be just
speak
for
to-
the rest of this year, like November and December?
I think we're talking in terms of advertising for 2022, right, Secretary Felix? Yeah, yeah, it's not, this year's about done, so we're talking about getting in front of it for next year, putting it on the website.
Do we have an expectation then that the borough manager would be at all those meetings, or do we?
can't
that wasn't-
Staff having
The ordinance
to
says they
all
must
this.
be, but we have to change something.
change
Or
the ordinance?
designated.
Or designee.
Yeah.
I think will be fine.
Okay, we'll put that.
I don't see a reason to have a
I don't
manager.
either. There are times that I think it's necessary that person, the manager is there, but there are times it's just Eric's there for some of the things, or, just a designee, I think will be fine. Do we have to change that then?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
That'll be a separate night issue.
Yeah.
And I think too, for public safety, I don't think we need to ask the chief to show up to all of those unless he's on the agenda
Sounds
specifically for something. I don't want our employees having to come in the evenings and do this stuff if they don't need to.
Just bear in mind, you who have expressed the wish and desire that we've now made a modification for of conducting monthly meetings. We still have the new sunshine ramifications where we have to, as leadership and chairs of various committees, do a better job putting together set agendas. So as we do this, make sure you are familiar with that with our solicitor as far as how things can maybe organically come up at meetings that could be discussed and business could be afforded. Also, I would encourage all chairs going forward to utilize staff more so than the opportunity of the public meeting for citizens to come. It would be, in my opinion, it is better that if a resident has an issue, that if they brought it to staff, so staff could put it on the agenda beforehand and possibly provide some research and possibly, just to use chief or police chief as an example, that, for example, if it was communicated through staff, they knew that it required his attention, he would certainly be included in the invite specifically for that meeting. So it's about effective utilization of our time. Yes, sir.
Just real quick on the Public Safety Committee, I will say, since it has changed to every other month, it has allowed Chief and I to iron these issues out before they come to the committee, get all the paperwork lined up, whereas before we were scrambling for an agenda and putting things on, and then you didn't have last month's items ready to go. I think it's just all about communication, as you just pointed out. If that complainant can provide their communication information to the chief or myself, we can start to lay the groundwork then, and I think then people aren't upset that they're having to wait because they get their issue directly to us, and we can lay the groundwork and the proper paperwork out to present to the committee then when we do have a meeting.
I take your point. I would clarify, it is always preferable that citizens go to staff, but I think we have a bare minimum requirement as elected officials of providing a microphone, any public comment time. And I think that is probably most important on the Public Safety Committee.
We do. It's just, again, make sure we're all up to speed with the new rules of how discussions can be generated as far as, like, there may be an instance where the public could bring something up at a meeting.
And you say, great, we'll put that on our agenda, or we'll...
But remember, we are in that meeting. We are obligated to hear that individual. We are not necessarily obligated, nor sometimes may we even be allowed to act that particular night. And even when we do act, it is the action of the committee members at the committee meeting, which is not the governing body of this borough. It is not even this group. This is the Finance and Personnel Committee of the governing body. It is the council meeting or any special meeting of the council that makes those decisions. So I'm just cautioning everyone, reminding us why we're here, and my advice as to how we can be more effective and more efficient.
Maybe just put a little extra blurb on the website or something, especially pertaining to public safety that way, because that is a problem, because if they come in that night and bring up an issue with the new sunshine law, you legally can't really, because we didn't know about it ahead of time.
Half the times that's what that is. It's a headline. It's trying to grab a headline.
Well, and a lot of times people want to be heard, and it's not my favorite thing, but it is part of our job to hear them.
To hear them, yes. Okay.
I think, though, also in thinking of meetings, we have to make sure that we do attend the meetings, because except for meetings I've been to, there's something for them. So if there's a meeting, your responsibility is as a person to attend that meeting if you're on that committee, so that committee can take action and move on to the Borough Council. Because sometimes you can't take any action, and then you're stuck, so you got to be there.
The fire chief has asked that the public safety meeting be moved to Tuesday because Monday conflicts with Penn Township.
Okay.
So he'd like to attend both, Penn and...
Probably be good he goes to both. Yeah. Is that a problem for anybody?
No, moving it to Tuesday, right, Nan?
Pardon me?
Is that what you're...
Moving it to Tuesday to accommodate the new closure.
Simple question. Did he ask Penn first and they said they wouldn't move, or?
I'm guessing that.
Nice.
Can you help us with that?
Tell them that
I'll get an answer to that.
Good night.
Probably tomorrow.
Problem our chair wasn't here tonight, so we'll have to figure that part out.
Okay, moving on. Department of Planning and Engineering, we have a street address change suggested to us. Approve the change in the physical address of 22B West Walnut Street and 24 West Walnut Street to 24 West Walnut Street and 26 West Walnut Street respectively. Anybody have any problem with that?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. All in favor, of moving it on? Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Good work.
Motion carries. Good work, Eric. All right, under the Public Works Department.
Better that way, right?
We have to ask to approve a 3-year lease to own for a single axle dump truck and backhoe with BCI Capital to be paid from all funds relative to the equipment's planned use, and an interest rate of 1.35%, and a total 3-year expenditure of $297,460.
So motion.
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, that motion carries. And also approve a 5-year lease to own for a tandem axle dump truck and trash compactor with BCI Capital to be paid from all funds relative to the equipment's planned use, an annual interest rate of 1.55%, and a total 5-year expenditure of $402,616.32.
So, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I'm sorry.
Chris.
Tonkin, Lockard,
They opposed.
Combo.
Oh, opposed.
She could do, let her do.
No, they were for
They
it.
opposed? I thought they were for.
They were for
Wait,
They're for it.
Or did
you're
you
in
do it
favor of
for?
that, are you?
Yeah, I made the motion.
Yeah, did you second it?
made the motion,
Okay,
I second.
Okay,
Okay,
then
got
we're
it.
good.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
we're good.
We're good.
Sorry.
We're all in favor? That motion carries? Okay,
Aye.
good. All right. The next one on the Water Department, the filter plant server, under the 2022 capital project, approve the order from the Control System 21 of Hillsburg, PA to cost $87,150. That was pretty well explained in our information. Anything else you want to add, Eric?
I do not, just that it is an absolutely mission
Seems
critical
like it
piece
is.
to the water system. so-
Yes.
Do it.
So
Yes,
moved.
motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And under Public Safety Committee, recommendations of our council. Scott's not here. We talked about that noise ordinance. Do you want to talk about that, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, we
started looking at it.
Yeah, we had the conversation at the public safety, went through some of the information, and public safety agreed that we needed to look at it. It's an ordinance that needs to be developed, sort of a template ordinance, and that it would move forward to the planning commission or zoning to develop the ordinance,
Is it planning, is that work on?
Why wouldn't it go, why would it go there?
because they develop an ordinance, because the ordinance is for zoning and noise and
Oh, because noise falls under zoning. I see.
I happened to share that information with several people when I may have been sitting outside somewhere downtown, and they're like, thank God. You know, those trucks go by, vibrates, you can't even hear.
Yeah, it's a big problem we've got to address.
Oh, I'm so,
So-
I'm in the wrong place. I apologize.
So, yeah, it was basically, we need to develop an ordinance, there's templates, it's basically Westchester, City of Westchester, Lancaster, York, all have similar, but there's little variations that we would want to look at and evaluate, similar to what we're doing with
Yeah.
the short-term rental stuff.
And it'll be a lot of, like, I think you talked to Kenny about a lot of educating people, just saying we have a
Right.
noise ordinance now.
Right.
So will the committee be reviewing alternatives, or is there something that any staff are required to do relative to the noise ordinance?
Basically, it's taking the template one that is not based on measurements and evaluating it against the 3 cities that currently have one that's very similar, and they have instituted fairly robust and recent noise ordinances, and just kind of craft one that kind of fits for our community.
So the committee will be looking at this and making a recommendation on it. Is that what?
No, the
what's next?
noise, if I recall, the noise committee or the safety committee basically said that because we agree it needs to be done, but because it's an ordinance writing, that it would be done under the planning,
Under the planning commission?
for the ordinance.
That really doesn't make sense to me.
I'm not sure that fits with what they.
I mean, we've passed many ordinances when I've been on council that if they didn't have to do with
That's-
zoning, didn't go.
Who
through.
writes them?
Typically our solicitor.
Solicitor-based
Staff and our solicitor.
Okay, well then, that's basically what we're saying.
You're saying what?
So we're saying staff.
Delegating to the
What
staff, planning and
is?
zoning.
Look at
So-
noise ordinance.
So the staff, meaning someone on the staff is going to evaluate noise ordinances and come back to Borough Council?
Yeah, to develop an ordinance.
And which
for it.
staff person do you think is appropriate for
I-
that? Me?
Would make sense to
Whoever
delegate.
does,
like
whoever
me.
does the ordinances.
No.
But then
The
who?
manager receives the request and
Yeah.
responsibility, you then delegate it. to
Delegate
your
it
staff.
out.
Your
To,
staff.
to the police chief.
Your staff.
I would think I
Whoever.
would be delegating it to the police chief.
The police chief does not
Their
write ordinances, does he?
Well, he would get models and compare it to other
Get
models,
models.
and then
Get other
pick a
ordinances.
path and recommend
I'll do
it to the solicitor.
I figured planning and zoning.
I'm not sure who, I just need to assign this work, and I'm not sure who to.
When we get an ordinance, how's that happen? Who-
Well,
Yeah.
we usually have
Chief of police.
we have a model ordinance.
Okay.
And it would relate to a specific department, so it could, like a licensing one might be in permits. Or this one on the borough manager change, that would probably be mine. So the noise ordinance would be enforced by the police department. So I would assume the police chief would develop a model ordinance, review it with the committee, and then go to the
Don't we have the
solicitor.
legislative part of government develops the law and then the enforcement side enforces the law? It
Yeah.
sounds like you're advocating that the enforcement side is developing the law.
And we have noise ordinance now.
That's
And
okay.
zoning for barking
okay.
dogs, and that's about it.
Chuck,
Okay.
when we were at that meeting, we decided not to go decibel, but
Right,
to
ordinances
do
can
audible.
come out of the
Correct.
police
And
department as a
that,
recommendation.
and Chad, you were there at the meeting also, and we discussed it, correct?
It's in favor.
To do audible, because there's really not
No, he's
a.
not.
Right.
There wasn't a direct pattern on this, it's what you run into as your officers approach in time
He
and.
has some.
If I need
Can
to
you
write it out,
explain that a little better
Just
than
say-
I can?
Just take 3 ordinances.
I'll do it.
To us.
Yeah, you have to define what
It's a waste of time.
has to be defensible.
It should be done in planning and
Whereas,
zoning, because
you
that's what
know,
ordinances are done
Decibel
for.
level, you have to have meters and training, et cetera, we're trying to get,
Could you, Nick, could Chad come up and explain this? Because we did discuss this at this meeting.
Okay.
And we really understood what we were doing at the time. And now I'm sitting here slightly confused, but Chad was very clear as
I
to how
think
this could be.
Counselor Hegberg did, the majority of the legwork here in getting the information for everybody. And just as I explained, and he has found out, we had a discussion before, trying to to enforce the decibel level is, it's tough.
You need equipment.
You need equipment, you need training, et cetera. So there's additional costs on top of what we're trying to do. Going the other route, basically you come up with a well-defined definition that's defensible core of what is unreasonable noise. And then from there, you create or craft your ordinance. Whatever other situations, I mean, you're not looking at just downtown, but what other there's what exceptions are there, et cetera, and go for there. So it would be a matter of just taking what, was provided, coming up with, presenting something before council that they think is acceptable for the borough after passing it through the solicitor and going from there.
I can work with the solicitor if need be.
We have 3 examples. Don't you have 3 examples?
Yeah, I've got plenty.
It's essentially-
I'll just put it together.
It's essentially
Three
cut-
example ordinances and combine
Much
them
like cut
to
and
see how it
paste.
fits for us, and then turning it
Turning to the
into
solicitor.
our ordinance, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Essentially, at the end of the day, it's like cut and paste. Is this palatable for council, for the borough? And as long as the solicitor okays it, then,
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Chad,
so
thank you.
what's going to happen then? Are you going to
I'll
hand
write
those?
it.
Are you going to
We're
work,
going
give
to
the
take the 3
ordinances to
and
Nan?
work it through committee and get
Work it
it.
through committee?
Committee to solicitor
I'll
to
write it and
council.
get it to the solicitor.
Sounds good. All right, okay. Moving
As far
on,
as the brake retardant thing, that's the letter that went,
that's just a letter.
right.
We just have to approve the letter to print.
I don't know, AJ's got to do something with traffic.
The letter it's a letter that we just have to approve requesting a brake retard prohibition, right?
Yes, that will go to council and then request
Right.
it signed by President Reed to
Right.
go to PennDOT. That's the next step in moving the brake retarder forward.
So that'll come on the council's agenda to approve that letter. Anybody have any questions about that letter? All right. Also on the Public Safety Committee recommendation is a traffic study to approve the committee request for the police chief to conduct traffic studies at George Street in Washington, Baltimore Street and Washington Street. Do I have a motion to to approve that committee request?
So moved.
Did I hear that?
So
Thank you.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And under the governance committee, we have the social media policy. Anything you want to share there, Chris?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Great. There was one or two changes in that, and that was in your packet of information. Simple changes. There weren't really big changes, but there were changes. So we need to approve the recommended policy amendment. You want to make a motion for that, Chris?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Second? All right. All in favor of moving it on to the agenda for council, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And under the Planning Commission recommendation, an amendment regarding the short-term rentals. That also was in your packet of information. Anything you want to share about that, Eric?
No, just a follow-up that the council certainly had asked for some further policy amendments and things to deal with short-term rentals. Obviously, as we had come out of our first case, we realized, and certainly as we knew even when we adopted the zoning, that we were going to have to visit that issue specifically.
Right.
So the last 2 months, Planning Commission has been working to create amendments to the zoning ordinance. We will not be creating a separate layer of bureaucracy, process, all those things. It will live in the zoning ordinance so that you can use the zoning hearing board, zoning enforcement officer, all of the existing processes that are already in place. And basically what has happened is Planning Commission has developed a set of very specific operational guidelines for short-term rentals that deal with a lot of the issues that we heard certainly in our first experience with one, but also drawing from what other communities are doing with short-term rental programs. They're absolutely a hot button item right now. All the publications on planning and land use law and all those things are always talking about these new short-term rentals. So good for us to be in front, at least with some guidelines and understanding we'll always change them. If they don't quite work the way we think they're going to, we'll fix them. We'll make them better. Those things, but we need some starting place. So what's in front of you tonight is a set of amendments to the zoning ordinance to deal with it. Your options in front of you are either to move it forward in its current form or to decide that you want some further edits or changes on your own and then move it forward.
A copy of that information was in our packet of information, our packet that we received for tonight. I would agree with what Eric said, and we have to make sure that we're okay on this because it's going to come to our attention again and again, I think.
But it is changeable.
Yeah.
Right now, we have nothing.
Right, so we got to have something.
And they're stacking up.
Yeah, so.
As far as interest. Eric, was the map amended?
I'm making that amendment now to match what Planning Commission addressed, yes.
Right.
You're going to revisit, Eric, right?
I'm sorry?
You're going to revisit this?
So the set that's in front of you now is
Yeah.
what would become the zoning amendment set. It's something that we will continually monitor. We are already opening up our set of 6-month amendments to the zoning ordinance anyway. So if there was something that, we pass this and we get 2 months down the road and we decide, man, I really wish we could change this, we'll actually already be in the process of making other zoning amendments. We could just toss that in there and make that change as well.
Correct.
So,
I
yes.
think we discussed that the other night, the library. Okay, thank you.
So I need a motion, if there are no, any questions, questions with Eric? I would appreciate a motion to approve these zoning ordinance amendments.
Is it a motion to move it to council to approve the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Of course.
So moved.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that motion
The only
carries.
clarification too on that, just as you move that forward, there will be an official hearing because this is your zoning amendment.
Right.
So there will be legal advertisements that have to be made as well as other things. So this movement is getting all of that started and certainly we'll work with the solicitor to get that done.
That's after our approval.
You're simply approving, I believe, correct, to move it forward and start that process, not necessarily to make it official that these are the amendments. They have a very legal process they have to go through in order to get there.
All right.
This is your saying
The beginning
yes
of the process.
in that process with this document.
Okay. Everybody understand that? Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and that specifically, though, will go on the council agenda so that residents next week
No, it's
be
coming.
aware and speak to it. Yeah, that's.
And then advertise for the hearing.
Right. They're knowing that we did something about it, because we
Yes.
said we were
And we're
going to.
talking about it.
Right, definitely. Included in your packet was reports, other reports of, and management reports, correspondence information. Anyone have any questions about that before we move to public comment? We have additional time for public comment by anyone who's out there still watching. Any comments? I can't see that. Does someone want to make a comment?
Looks like they shouldn't be allowed to do chat.
No. All right. No. Okay. Anyone here want to make a comment about anything? Any public comment here? If not, I will note the dates on the next dates coming up to make sure they're on your calendar, so we do have a quorum for the necessary committee meetings. And I would appreciate a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. We're adjourned. Thank you.